All right, this one's going to be a little rough because this is my first complete 100% scratch built, including the neck. Um, yeah. So what we're talking about here is I'm building a second Dean machine. Yeah, aka the Hondo Paul Dean 2. This would be like the Hondo Paul Dean 1 probably because it's got P90s in it. So this will be my first P90 guitar. I have taken some creative liberties with them. Some of them happy accidents, some of them just cool stuff. But anyway, we're going to kind of talk a little bit about the Dean machine here real quick and kind of the history that led up to this. So, um, first off, this is going to be a little bit of a Loverboy video. So let's talk about the history of Loverboy from a guitar perspective. First off, I must admit, yes, Loverboy is not exactly the #1 band always cited when it comes to guitar players. There are a lot of guys who really think they're badass and have great tone and really sound good and have good chops. I really think Paul Dean's another one of those guys like Elliot Easton who really does a tasteful job. He doesn't have to shred all the freaking time to sound cool, and he has a really kick-ass tone almost all the time. Even at the times when it's buried under keyboards, which of course is the reason I hacked my turntable when I was 14. Oh, the things you can do messing with the phases of a record player with a pair of 100K ohm pots. So, when it came to this, Loverboy is kind of tied with the Cars as one of my favorite bands of all time. So let's talk about Dean's guitar thing real quick. I'm sure I've covered it on this channel. So the history was basically he's been rebuilding guitars since like high school in the late 60s or mid 60s, something like that. And what Dean did, he built a bass that he wasn't too crazy about. He had another custom guitar. He used I gotta wonder if he used the guitar of focus though here is a 64. I've read somewhere it was originally Daphne Blue, like my new Jaguar. 64 Fender Stratocaster, and he rebuilt it in like 1973 or 1974. I don't know how long he had that guitar, but he was using it beforehand. And I gotta wonder if it was used in Canada Fox, the '60s band he was playing in. You know, listen to Mr. Tall. That's kind of a fun song. So the guitar was a 64 Daphne Blue Strat. He smashed it imitating Pete Townsend, took the guitar home and put the neck back together and the body back together with like LePage's Bondfast or something, and then left it in a hot car trunk, and it went for crap. All this is referenced in the September 1983 Guitar Player magazine episode with Kelly Hansen of Girl School on the front. So Dean built this crazy Strat. He calls it his old funky Strat in some articles. So it's a Fender Stratocaster where the inertia block area for the tremolo is like reinforced with fir, pine, oak. I've heard several different accounts of what he used. And then he had a metal pickguard with rubberized top on it. If you watch some of the Loverboy concerts from like 1980, 1981, 1982, he usually in 81, 82 brought this guitar out for the encores, Turn Me Loose, and The Kid Is Hot Tonight, usually. It had the rubber on the pickguard, and you'd see where it sunk in where all the pickguard screws were and where the pickup adjustment screws were, and under there's a metal backing. There's another video Paul himself put out where he had the Stratocaster in the video, and you could see that just the metal backing remains today. So that old funky Strat had a few different things he did to it that were kind of cool. So the neck was completely destroyed, so he replaced it with a Telecaster neck, which is kind of likely the inspiration for this headstock. His the Telecaster neck he bought new from Fender didn't. It had good sustain but no real tone, and he really liked the resonance of the guitar when it was put together with LePage's Bondfast. It had a break at the 10th fret. So he went and built his own neck, and that was kind of a key in me constructing my own Dean machine, because you can't go out and buy a neck like Paul Dean builds off the rack. You have to build it yourself from scratch. So what Dean did is he made his own neck with a truss rod slot down the center and then two resonance slots running down each side. So it has three truss rod slots with two of them empty, parallel to the truss rod slot. His And those resonance slots, some people argue it's snake oil. I actually think there's really something to it because I have a Hondo. It has that sound. I mean, it nails it. We're going to see with this if that's really the case. So, yeah, that chambered neck on it. I don't think he did the headstock tilt on the originals. So that guitar was the one he used for the first two Loverboy records. The first one being, of course, Loverboy, released in 1980. That one with all the hit songs on it being The Kid Is Hot Tonight and Turn Me Loose. My personal favorites being Always on My Mind, Lady of the 80s, Teenage Overdose, DOA, and It Don't Matter. So he recorded most of that album with a Strat and a 75 Les Paul with ceramic pickups in it, which is what he used on Always on My Mind. I'm betting it's that yellow Les Paul he has on like the 82 tour before this guitar showed up, or his version of this guitar showed up, because it had two P90s on it. You'll see it in the video for Lucky Ones off the second album. The second album, I don't think he had this together yet until probably before the tour. I would call the effect the Kurt Cobain Jaguar effect. Everybody would assume this would have let's assume this guitar is red and all this is black. Everyone assumes that this would be the guitar that would be on that record because that's the guitar that he was seen with live. But I think Dean built that after they had already been touring for a while. Maybe they took a break for about a week or two or a month or something, and Dean went and built this new Dean machine because there was a prototype before this that had 3 single coils and it was a Stratocaster style and had the Leo Kwan Badass bridge and had the oval pickguard. I always refer to that guitar as Gangs because it's in the Gangs in the Street video. It was also, I believe he used it on Take Me to the Top on the second album in the studio. I think that's the original Dean machine prototype. But then he came up with this one, or the one similar to this that has the dual P90s in it, which I don't know if he scavenged those out of his Les Paul or if he actually bought another set of P90s and put them in there. But that was the thing. So that guitar that he made with the P90s in it was really kind of the original prototype for the original Odyssey and the original Hondo guitars. And I think a big reason he used DiMarzio Super 2s in the second version was because they're similar in output to P90s, but they're hum canceling, and they were probably a lot easier to get on tour back then. Because in the world of guitar, there's really kind of an industry standard with your standard single coil and humbucker pickups. And things like P90s, Jazz Masters, Jaguar pickups, and that are considered kind of specialty. And the further back you go in the history, the more specialty they become as they're less used. Because in the early 80s, most people just use single coils and humbuckers. So he built that guitar and played that on the 82 tour. Nobody knows what happened to it. Of course, I had the chambered multi-piece neck. We'll get to this one in a minute. Of course, that guitar eventually translated in the Odyssey and the Hondo, which the Odysseys were 45 were made, or 50 were made. 4 or 5 were given off to friends, family, Dean himself, and then the other half were split in half. Half went to Vancouver music shops. The other half went to charity. A lot of them lived in his garage, and a new piece of info I learned a while back was when he was working on his Kramer guitar, Lara V was working with him on those originally. They weren't Kramer's originally, they were Lara V built instruments. And what Dean did was he had those Odyssey guitars, the last, I don't know, half of that 45 that were in his garage, he took them in and had them rework the necks on all of them. I read that on the Kramer forums. I'm the guy that runs the website for the Hondo guitars, by the way, the Hondo Dean Machines guitars mainly. So that's what kind of inspired me to build this, because I was like, well, I'm going to build how it kind of got started was I cut out this body shape, and it ended up a little too thin, but it has kind of a neat Warwick type curve to the top. If you've ever seen Scott Smith's bass that he used on the early Loverboy tours, it's that Warwick bass that's natural finish, and it's got kind of the octangular P bass pickup housing in the middle. He used that on everything. I kind of, when that happened, when I was cutting this body out, I was like, that's kind of cool. I'm going to keep that. So it's actually kind of an arch top. My version is. But anyway, getting back to Dean's guitars. So the Odyssey and Hondos, they went through a little bit of a period. There was a period a couple of years ago where I think him and Odyssey tried to restart and start making new guitars, and then it just didn't quite work out. He's currently still playing a prototype Odyssey Dean machine, like the new version. He originally had 2 humbuckers. He then put 2 singles and a Floyd, and well, it had a Floyd, but he put two singles and a humbucker in it now, so it's more like his body parts strats, as he calls them, which are all just basically Fender Stratocasters. So now let's get on to my version of this guitar. So this guitar really kind of started back in 2018. I had a bunch of pallets that I cut up from work. They didn't know how to dispose of them, so they gave me the pallets, and I had them in the back of my truck. And I sat back there with this very hammer in the back of my truck, just prying nails out of pallets, throwing them in a glass jar, and taking the pallets apart. So this body here is the frame rails of a pallet. It's I believe it looks like it's only 2-piece, but I don't know where I found. No, it's like 4 or 5-piece. And it's very heavy wood, very close to like the maple the original Odysseys were made out of. Because in the Guitar Player article I read, they used maple bodies. The only difference is this is much slimmer. There's like a third of the width chopped off here, and it makes the guitar even smaller and lighter. Might add to the resonance. As you can see, it's got some pretty figuring in the back. I used acrylic paint mixed in to get this kind of cool finish. The camera's not doing it justice. In real life, it's like a really cool kind of teal color halfway between my acoustic and my Memphis, but transparent because there's a lot of pretty wood grain. And I'm with Eddie Van Halen on, hey, there's a knot in the wood. I don't give a crap. Knot in the wood, that looks cool. Put a clear finish over it. Adds the character. Right here, I don't know if I can show it on camera properly, but this is a white version of the anti-scratch ABS pickguard. I got Chris Jones's book about Odyssey, and the verdict is out whether Dean intentionally wanted this pickguard material, which is called ABS hair cell plastic, or if Odyssey just did it because they were having trouble getting parts from their suppliers at the time. I'm not sure which would be more true. So what I did with this one is I went ahead and made a white version. I chose not to do it Loverboy Red because I was like, well, this already is basically Dean's guitar design. I don't want to be exactly like him. I want it to kind of stand out and be its own thing. So I was like, okay, we'll leave the curved top in here. That's kind of cool. It also kind of works with the contours. Very comfortable. I mean, very comfortable body and neck on this one. The neck on this is rock solid. I mean, which is amazing once we get to that part. And that's like the soup du jour of this whole build. The pickups are Golden Age P90s. The bridge, I think, is almost 9K. The neck is about 8.5, so about the same as a DiMarzio Super 2. I do think the output on these and the sound is very different than a DiMarzio. I tried to get the positioning as close to Paul's guitar as I could because I really liked the sound he had with those P90s. The wiring, these are the gold skull knobs that used to be on my Dean ML guitar when it was doing its whole thing. I put them on there and they looked cool, so I just left them on. We might do gold hardware on this one. And then down here, I'm going to put a freeway 6-way switch so you can have, series, parallel, on, off, all that stuff, phase reversal, all that fun stuff on these two P90s. So I have a few more tonal variations on your standard Dean machine, So I have some of my own sounds in this as well. Let's talk about the neck. So the neck is a 4-piece neck made out of a mix of maple, oak, and some other woods. I'm not an arborist, so I'm not an expert. What I did do is I'm working on making this the straight string path. It does have a 10-degree headstock tilt. It's very slight, but it's very good. I put a bit of a minor smoothed out volute there in a way. The back you can see the multi-piece construction in the back. I left a knot there, which actually, funny enough, it's got a knot there, and it's got another one right there, almost just like his Strat at the 10th fret. So it's like kismet that this thing is going together the way it is. Underneath the fretboard, I have the resonant slots in there. I also have one thing that's an upgrade. The The original Dean machines were 21 fret guitars. This has 22 like a Gibson Les Paul Jr. and it has a rosewood board. The fretboard radius is the modern Fender 9.5-inch fretboard radius. So I've radiused it already. It feels really comfortable. It's a very slim neck. I want to make it as slim as possible. So much so I actually, as proof, there's one of the areas where I accidentally did kind of sand through the resonance slot, so I'm going to refill that. Strangely, despite all this structural wackiness, it's actually got a very solid neck. It doesn't have much give to it. And then we have this spoke nut truss rod here, and I love having these to adjust. As you can see, I've got scratches, I got lines, I got things all over here that aren't perfect. So the way I made the body, I just glued 4 pieces of wood together with giant clamps, and then sanded it, and then painted it. Pick guard, I didn't even trace it, I actually hand drew this. I wanted to kind of put my own slanty angle on it, to kind of make it my own, so it's not completely aping Paul's guitar 100%. It is going to have the Leo Kwan Badass Bridge, or if I can find one, I'm really desperately looking for a Shaler 4201 Les Paul Tremolo to try out. I actually want to try it out on my Hondo first, because I think that's just a rad trem system, and I think it would work great on those. But I might put the 4201 on this in the end, or I've thought about making my own because of all the tariffs and shit. I might actually end up making my own brass bridge out of brass, and maybe take a note from Odyssey's book, build my own kind of transposing Leo Kwan tremolo bridge, kind of similar to the 4201. Could probably build it to be even more solid than the 4201 since I've heard of those wallowing the posts out. So I'll just have 2 posts and maybe a support piece back here and then have the bar. That'd be kind of cool. Yeah, I already have the pots placed. I'm going to copy the same neck screw hole config that the originals had. Sanding this, I did all this sanding and cutting by hand. There's still a little bit of smoothing I need to do, but it's actually pretty darn good. I might have some filling in at the heel and fixing. You know, Luthery, when you're learning it, and every time you build something, you learn something new, and this guitar has been teaching me a lot just in its construction. I chose for the standard Fender thing. That's another liberty I'm probably going to take on this, is I'm going to use Kluson Revolution machine heads with split posts on it, because those are my favorite types. Overall, though, it's comfortable. It's reasonably light. I feel very much at home on it already. It doesn't even have frets. For frets, I'm going to probably go with something similar to like a modern standard fret size, probably, since I like those. That's kind of the progress on this so far. Don't really have much more to say. I mean, it's a work in progress. I haven't even put the back on. The clear coat that I'm trying out on the front is this bare brush-on polyurethane. And I found if I sand it up to 2000 grit, it looks almost as good as, actually it looks as good as the clear coat, spray-on clear coat I used on another build last year. So I'm probably going to be trying out some new construction techniques on this. Overall, though, it looks pretty promising. Probably going to be trying some other weird stuff with this. I even have my own headstock logo printed up for this. It's going to say creepingnet, strike zone, PDX 90 on it. That's what I call these, a strike zone, after the 83 album song Strike Zone from the album Keep It Up. It's the only one, though, that's going to be for me, because the last bit I probably should reveal about this is where I went to go with the P90s on this. Anyway, I got to finish this one up in this round of videos in this series of On the Bench, so... Anyway, just to finish up, we'll talk about where I got the idea. So this is my only P90 instrument that I probably have ever owned, and I decided this is going to be kind of my last hurrah and this sort of thing, because we're really getting in on the narrowing down of shit soon. Yeah, as I move closer to my semi-retirement next year in April, so... what I mean by that is I'm probably not going to be posting as often. I'll still be replying to comments, but I'm trying to kind of get out of the whole making videos every other freaking weekend and doing them in runs like this, because, you know, I'm probably going to be slowing down on a lot of things. I'm 40 now. It's not exactly easy to do that. Getting back to the guitar, though, I mean, yeah, this was going to be the first P90 thing. When I bought these, I was like, do I build a junior? Do I build a special? I'm not really that fond of Les Pauls. Not really fond of SGs much either. What would I put them in? I don't really want to do a P90 Jaguar. If I was to do that, I might as well go buy one of those Chinese $500 ones. So I was like, okay, if I'm going to try P90s in something, let's try it in something cool that nobody has. Let's make a Dean machine. So there you go. Anyway, this is me signing out. See you in the next video.